Yoshi's frickin' story. Man, have I been looking forward to talking about this game. So by now, there are some people out there who know me for being that Yoshi guy, or maybe not and I'm just crazy. Regardless, I love talking about the Yoshi games. Each one is at least mildly enjoyable for their own reasons. Some may be better than others, but at the end of the day, I wouldn't go as far to say there's a bad Yoshi game. Now, the other games are an entirely different situation, but Yoshi's story. Man, this game is something special to me. It's the first Yoshi game I ever played, and for the longest time, the only one I owned. Not to mention, this was my introduction to Yoshi games. For the longest time, I really wanted to play Yoshi's Island, but the SNES was irrelevant by the time I was born. So being a kid stuck with a Wii and DS as his main source of video games, I ended up gaming a lot on my Wii, playing stuff like Mario Kart 64, Legend of Zelda, and some other Mario stuff. Somehow or another, I must have stumbled upon Yoshi's story on the Wii shop, because I certainly don't remember hearing much hubbub about it back then. Speaking of which, who else misses the Wii shop? Like, that was a really fun store to browse. I'm sure it had its fair share of shovelware, but probably nothing like the Switch's eShop. Anyhow, I'm getting distracted, so let's go ahead and start up Yoshi's story. The story is that Baby Bowser casts a spell that turns the Yoshi's whole island into a storybook. Yeah, apparently Bowser had world-altering abilities. Like, if he can do that here, then what's stopping him from doing it in future Mario games? Also, I forgot to mention this, but the Yoshis have this tree, the super happy tree that keeps them all happy. Baby Bowser just takes it, and this moment really makes me wonder, because it's this that causes the Yoshis to start stewing? So, the Yoshis start worrying because the tree is gone, and honestly, this is kinda depressing if you think about it. Like, the Yoshis that, mind you, are grown up, or I assume they are at least, aren't happy at all if they don't have this tree. While on the other hand, this batch of baby Yoshis hatch, and they're all just fine. Like, they're still sad, but these dudes just look petrified. So the baby Yoshis notice the problem and decide to find the super happy tree by following the trail of fruit left behind it and take it back home. Alright, so before I get into the gameplay, I gotta talk about the art style. The graphics are really nice. The Yoshis look super cute with these dumb expressions. They even hum while waiting for you to do anything. Anyway, something I like about the Yoshi games, the mainline ones at least, they go for a different art style than your typical Mario game. You've got a crayon coloring book type style, whatever you would call this, a wool, a diorama style, and this. It fits the whole storybook theme very well, especially with the level select screens. It's super charming. Honestly, to an extent, it reminds me of Donkey Kong Country's art style. Well, in-game at least. So the game has you on a sort of fruit hunt throughout each level, looking for at least 30 fruit to finish the level and continue on. As far as I'm aware, there's no defined ending to a level, they just loop back around, so you're more or less expected to explore each level thoroughly and find all the fruit. I say thoroughly, but honestly, there were fruit everywhere, man. Like, if you even try to avoid some fruit, there'll still be plenty elsewhere. Although certain levels aren't really designed around exploration, as some have more areas to see while others are more linear. So I guess it's more for first-time players in case they miss some fruit. And because of this, you're given a way to go back to previous pages or segments of a level. These weird things, I don't know what their names are, they'll be sleeping whenever you find them, but if you bounce on them for a moment, then you can travel back to that area using another one of them by going on top of them and jumping. It's pretty handy, but not a necessary addition unless you're a toddler, maybe? I say this because of the amount of fruit you can find in any given level. It just makes the game so much easier this way. Well, that is unless you're going for one specific fruit. In particular, I'm referring to melons. There are at least 30 melons in every level, but they aren't left in plain sight, so if you want to find them, then you're gonna have to search everywhere, sniffing for hidden melons or finding other areas. Speedrunners know this as the 30 Melon Challenge, and I've gotta give it to them because I don't think I'd have the patience for this, much less learning the tech to find the melons more quickly. Something I've noticed throughout the years is how Yoshi feels to control whenever you compare it to any other Yoshi games. In those other games, it's pretty simple to control Yoshi midair and land safely on a platform. In Yoshi's story, it's not so easy. See, Yoshi feels a lot more slippery and a bit loose, mostly while fluttering. This can make it unnecessarily difficult to land on certain smaller platforms without doing very slight taps of movement, not to mention this has led me to a lot of very stupid deaths. As for the rest of the controls, Yoshi can swallow enemies to heal himself and replenish his eggs, and he can also do this weird sniffing thing. So, if you hold down a certain button, the screen will zoom in and Yoshi will start sniffing. If Yoshi starts getting excited, that means there's something hidden nearby. Most of the time, these hidden things are just coins, but occasionally you'll find some melons or hidden platforms. It's an odd addition, but pretty fun to mess around with. The level design in Yoshi's story is decent, if a bit simple. Personally, I've never gotten super bored with it, but I wouldn't be surprised if anyone else did, because the game is super laid back. There are certain levels that end up being more difficult, but I feel like more often than not that's because they have segments that aren't super well designed. So, I don't know, I kinda prefer the casual levels. The game is also fairly short, like you can easily beat it in one sitting. This is helped by the fact that there are multiple levels on each page. These are the game's version of worlds, although I don't necessarily like how it's handled. To be able to play the other levels, you're required to find these stupid happy heart things. The amount of levels you're able to choose is entirely dependent upon how many of them you collect. I never knew about this for years. I guess young me was too stupid to remember that, but for all that time I genuinely thought the amount of levels you could choose from was some RNG crap. Keep in mind, you have to do this for every playthrough and get all 3 hearts if you're trying to play the 4th level on a page. This makes it somewhat of a tedious process if you're trying to play every level in the game. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you can have played all the levels throughout 4 different playthroughs, but I sure didn't do that, and I've played it how many times? Yeah, even despite that, I'm not super bothered by it, but it's an unneeded amount of tedium. How they should have handled it is you would only have to collect the hearts once, then the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th levels would be unlocked on all of your future playthroughs. Now I know trial mode is there if you want to play every level at any time, but I still think they could have handled the level system better. So, the bosses. They are super easy. Most of them don't even require much effort. I mean, we've got Inviso here who's not difficult at all to see, which I find hilarious. Then there's this big candy dude. All you have to do to beat him is eat him. Man, that's a horrible way to go out. The only exception to this is Baby Bowser, but even then his fight is made pretty easy due to the super happy tree being present. The tree not only grows regular fruit, but also super happy fruit which give you temporary invincibility. The fight has you waiting for bombs to drop down, then throw them back up at the ceiling to hit the spikes that can fall back down and damage Baby Bowser. After you beat him, Bowser gives up the tree and the Yoshis live happily ever after. A nice happy ending, and they even top it off with this great ending theme. But that's the majority of what there is to discuss here. Yoshi's story, despite being flawed in areas, will never not be a special game for me. I love this game, man. It's a really nice casual game to play every now and then, and the length really helps with this. Even if you just want to play 1 or 2 levels, there's trial mode that lets you play any of the levels you've been to before. I might not be Yoshi rolling anymore, but this game is the very reason why I loved him to begin with, and hopefully one day we'll get another game somewhat like it. Though maybe not as easy as Yoshi's story, but I've got to go make a quick delivery, so I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!